We have talked plenty this offseason about the Sixers star hunting and what should be done with that massive amount of cap space that they have worked so hard to preserve. Well, a new name has entered the conversation on a familiar team, that being the Miami Heat. And no, it is not Jimmy Butler, but there is one of his running mates who could strike the wandering eye of the Sixers as a backup plan for this offseason. So Bleacher Report wrote this article phrased as moves that should happen in the NBA, and what it leads to with the Sixers is Caleb Martin to Philadelphia. So to give kind of the article its full sell before I dive into my thoughts on it, I will read out what is written here, and it says that assuming the Sixers guarantee Ricky Council IV and keep their first round pick, they're looking at a hair over $62 million in cap space if they renounce all their own free agents and non-guarantees other than Tyrese Maxey. Parlaying that money into Caleb Martin is not plan A, B, C, or beyond. Philly has prioritized its flexibility with flashier intentions. And yet, there's a chance that free agents and trade markets don't yield big-time additions. Even if they do, the Sixers need to fill out an actual roster. Martin is an ideal complement to a larger ecosystem. His offensive efficiency dipped this past season, 53.1% true shooting, but by and large, he can knock down standstill trays, attack downhill, keep the rock moving, and ping around the half court without the ball. His defense, meanwhile, has degrees of ferocity. He maneuvers through traffic swiftly, can test shots from all angles, delivers timely and effective double teams, and uses a fluid lateral gait to keep pace with downhill attackers. At 6'5", he's best deployed against guards, but he's frequently held his own tussling with some bigger wings and forwards. Two-way complements are an important part of any contending roster. The Sixers need them, especially if they can't convince Nicholas Batum to postpone retirement, and definitely if DeAnthony Melton leaves in free agency for his back issues linger. Getting Martin could prove challenging. He's due for a raise from the $7.1 million he's slated to make next season. That likely rules out the Sixers for landing him on the $8 million room exception. This isn't the end of the world, though, and Philly has cap space to spare. The Miami Heat's interest in re-signing him looms as the bigger obstacle. Then again, when they're already into the tax without factoring his next deal, maybe not. So a lot to digest there, but I did think that was a pretty good breakdown that I did want to give its full credence to. Shout out to Dan Favale for writing that there. But when speaking about Caleb Martin, he is the quintessential Miami Heat player. Now, those types of Heat players are exactly who I want this Sixers team to load up with. That the hard-nosed, versatile, plays hard, that is Caleb Martin. Now, I would be lying if there wasn't a part of me that fears there isn't some of the Miami voodoo over Caleb Martin, and he's not going to look the same when you put him in another uniform. But I will note that I've been a fan of his game for quite some time. Liked him all the way back during his days at Nevada with him and his twin brother Cody, tearing things up and having some fun on the floor back then. So I do like him as a player independent of the Heat relationships. And to dive into specifically what he does bring to the table, to start with his stats, that obviously he started his career in Charlotte, has made a name for himself down in Miami, played 195 games for the Heat. During that time, he's averaged 9.6 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 0.9 steals, 0.5 blocks, has shot 36.8% from beyond the three-point arc on 3.2 attempts per game. Through his career, he's a 35.7% three-point shooter, also has shot 45% from the field overall. And this was a bit of a down year for his steal production, that he has had 1.0 assists in his past two seasons with Miami, and he's battle-tested. This is a guy who's played a real high-level role on a team that has gone to the NBA Finals just last year with the Miami Heat, and it constantly seems like they are in big games, are competing hard, are surprising teams. He's got a nice scrappiness to him that I think would be beloved by Philadelphia and is frankly necessary to this Sixers team. So with Caleb Martin, I want to start off by noting that he's also a playoff riser. To pull up his playoff stats here, that in the past 3 seasons with the Miami Heat, and as I mentioned, playing 30.2 minutes per game on last year's team that went all the way to the finals, during that run, he averaged 12.7 points, 5.4 rebounds, 1.6 assists, shot 42.3% from beyond the three-point arc on 4.5 attempts per game. And this season, although it was brief, he still shot 44% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. He has shown up in some big moments, and that is intriguing. And I think the larger conversation here is, obviously, the Sixers' plan A is not to sign Caleb Martin with all this cap space that they work so hard to keep and protect. But I think there should be a bit of a mindset shift where maybe it's not best to put all your eggs in one basket. Maybe it is not just Paul George and then call it a day. that is there a world where you, at a little bit of a cheaper price, you pick up a Caleb Martin and a Malik Monk and a couple other guys that could be helpful, that when you look at these teams that are still remaining in the NBA playoffs, and at this point we got the Indiana Pacers, the Boston Celtics, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Dallas Mavericks. These teams are deep. Each of these teams has more depth than any Sixers team surrounding Joel Embiid has. And you're seeing the importance of that. That in that Minnesota Timberwolves game, that Game 7 victory over the defending champ Denver Nuggets, Anthony Edwards shot 6 for 24 from the field, and the team still won. If Joel Embiid shoots 6 for 24 from the field in a game, the Sixers do not win that game. It's as simple as that. But the Minnesota Timberwolves have done a nice job finding supplementary players. The Naz Reids of the world, Mike Conley, Jaden McDaniels, all these guys that come in to make an impact. Kyle Anderson. The list goes on with players that find their stride and pick up for their superstar. The Sixers need more players like that, and I do believe Caleb Martin does fit that build here. So I am interested to see what the market looks like him. It did mention that this is obviously going to be a financially backed decision by Caleb Martin, that this is really his first time hitting the market as such a desirable player, and currently the contract that he's on with the Miami Heat, that he can opt out of the player option, which is worth $7.1 million. He's made $6.8 million and $6.5 million in the 2 years prior. He absolutely will get a bigger deal like that, so I do think it's pretty certain that he does make his way to the free agent market, and I don't think the Sixers would be wrong to invest a pretty penny in him. That maybe the conversation shifts from, is it bring in Paul George and work with the trio of Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid? Or maybe the conversation is, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey are two superstars. What if we're making the rest of the starting lineup just complimentary guys? That we're talking about Tyrese Maxey, Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, throw another name in there. Malik Monk even. I like Monk quite a bit. That is a guy that I'm interested in, although defensively there are some concerns there as well. That's not the case with Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin is a guy that, I just mentioned DeAnthony Melton in a past video speaking about what the financial aspects for him. He's looking like he's projected to make a 4-year, $60 million deal. If that is the same thing, I would feel far more comfortable throwing that money at Caleb Martin than keeping DeAnthony Melton. That I think Martin is bigger than Melton. I think he's more of a real deal wing than Melton. And I also think that I'm more confident in him physically than I am in Melton at this point in time because of that back injury. So when kind of making these comparisons, I do think Caleb Martin is a guy that these Sixers should at least pick up the phone and give a call to. That I definitely think there's a world where he can contribute, where he can help the Sixers team take that next step and truly become a pillar of a championship team. That I do think Caleb Martin is trending in that direction, has done everything possible to prove that that is the case, and I would love for that to continue right here in Philadelphia. So while Jimmy Butler and Paul George and all these names will continue to circle around, Brandon Ingram, LeBron James, you name it, the Sixers are going to find themselves attached to just about every player on the market. But maybe it isn't best to swing for the home run. I'm kind of trending towards maybe it is. Let's go hit a couple doubles, hit a couple singles, and build a true team in a way that has not been done just yet in the Joel Embiid era. That I don't need to see Greg Monroe rotating off the bench. I don't need to see a Sixers bench unit scoring 5 points. Let's actually build a deep team that is ready to compete from start to finish and top to bottom looks complete. I do believe maybe sacrificing a little bit of the top end and going with Caleb Martin could aid in that direction quite a bit. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is that a direction you see could make sense for the Sixers? I know that Daryl Morey is a guy who always has his eyes on the biggest prize, who is very much a star-hunting general manager, so I'm not saying this is the most likely route, but I do think it's one that these Sixers should absolutely consider, and there's also a ton of financial benefits to it when factoring the tax implications, the way that you have more flexibility for having contracts that can be tradable moving forward. All these things point toward reasoning why this could be successful for the team. So let me know if you guys are on the same page as me with that, and anything else you got in your mind in the comments. Drop a like to let me know you're listening, and drop a subscribe to make sure we keep the Sixers Digest family growing. Appreciate all you guys for tuning into this video here. I'll be talking with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.